Thank you for WSO2 for inviting us to this lovely conference. I am here with two of my colleagues, whatever questions regarding what we do, not only on the interoperability program, is welcome, and we can answer them probably. Today I will be speaking about what we do, and the most important thing is for you to understand the context. Moldova is a relatively small country compared to European area. We have a 3.5 million population. The capital is in the center geographically of the country, so everything is in our capital. I mean, all of the ministries, central authorities. We are a multilingual country, which is quite important for us because everything we do is usually translated at least in 2 languages, Romanian and Russian. We have a quite high penetration of internet and mobile coverage. By international rankings, we are somewhere around the 10th country in the world, proportionally to the population and the area. So, starting to do the e-government to make everything to digitize the government faster is something that is backed up by these facts. So, e-government center is a central authority, which is the CIO of the government. We are operational from 2011. We are subordinated to the state chancellery, which is a ministry under Prime Minister, which organizes and drives the agenda of the whole government. And we are responsible for so-called government e-transformation agenda. So, what's the main scope of what we do is to digitize and make available all of the public services that can be electronic as fast as possible and as high quality as possible. So what this means actually is that we are coordinating central and sectorial agendas, architectures, and our target is to help everybody to do their own work in their own sector. So, what we started to do is to build a platform for that. So any electronic service is not a simple form or a website where you can fill in a form, sign it, or whatever. But it requires the whole infrastructure behind it. So electronic services that citizens or public sees is only at the tip of an iceberg, as most of you probably know. So let's follow up. Let's see what we've done to simplify this. In the electronic services context, you don't know who you are speaking with. So the first question is authentication. So, or identification of the citizen or business you have to speak with. Another question is the citizens or other organizations have to put some signature on some documents to give the rights to the public servants to make the decision. So requests must be signed usually in all cases. Another important service is electronic payments, because if the payment is not electronic, you cannot deliver fully an electronic service. So what we also concentrate on is electronic messaging, because in a digital world you have to communicate a lot, and even more maybe with your citizens, to say about the progress of their requests and maybe proactively prevent something or remind them to do. Also, because electronic services are available or should be available 24 hours from any point in the world, a good hosting platform is required. So we also covered that. Then the subject of this my speak is this interoperability framework and the interoperability platform, which uses the WSO2 stack, and I will come back to that in a short term. Also, sometimes the public services result in some deliverables, either documents, papers, or whatever else, and the delivery is what closes up the whole requirement to have the full electronic services. And not the last one, but probably one of the most important one is client support, because citizens are not always ready to use these innovations and may have problems, and client support is really helpful in providing these electronic services. So actually we solved almost all of those problems by implementing the so-called M services, and we found fancy names for them. And you can see there the dates. These platforms were launched. We are still working on M delivery. And this M letter is from Moldova, mobile, modern, whatever you want. But all of them by name practically say to you what they do. So you can try to open now, for example, the website mpass.gov.md or msign.gov.md. There is an English version for them. You can look through them what they mean. But today I will concentrate on the interoperability platform, which we call mConnect. So the data exchange between public services is probably the main foundation for electronic services. None of the informational system in a government is isolated. They were developed usually as isolated because the budgets and the strategy were usually sectorial, and no central authority or high-ranking people were coordinating them. So we, through this platform, want to solve and to facilitate data exchange between agencies. We help other ministries and agencies to solve this problem in various ways. One of the interesting thing is that sometimes even inside one organization, people are requested to go to get some paper from one office to the other in the same public authority. This is quite strange in our times. But this is what happens, and little by little, through data exchange and other things, we try to solve this problem. So we divided conceptually the problem as in European Interoperability Framework. First of all, the legal interoperability is very important, because sometimes in the laws you have written that people shall come to request a service and provide some data by themselves, some certificate, license or something that is provided from another organization. So the legal aspect of interoperability is very important, because you have to change usually many things that specify that. The other levels are as important as they are, but the most complicated one is the organizational interoperability, which means you have to align business processes in various agencies so that they interoperate, and outputs from one activity goes as input to another, and also these interinstitutional arrangements shall happen. The semantic and technical part are the easiest one, but are the ones that you have to solve first. This is our experience. And we can say that the technical side of it is quite ready to be used on full scale. And we are starting now to work on the semantic part. So, conceptually, if all of the institutions would connect to each other, which they had started to do before we came with the solution, is that they would have to collaborate between them in a web of links. So this doesn't only means a technical contract or a network connection, but also an agreement point to point, legal debates, law changes, things like that. So we investigated the ecosystem in other countries, what they do. We have been inspired by Belgian model, Estonian model. We saw what are the differences and chosen to implement, because of our context mainly, a relatively centralized solution. So what those lines mean, not only simple network connection or technical interface, but also legal contract agreement. And whenever you connect your institution as a consumer of data, which is usually why they come to us, you have to also provide your data, because other institutions want your data. So this is something we use to catch everybody in this, to have their role. Started with the legal framework, we have 2 government decisions. I will not stop in details on them, but these government decisions are ones that set up the concept I just shown to you and set up the responsibilities and an action plan. And the next government decision said that exactly 9 organizations from our government shall participate in the piloting phase with at least 1 integration project. The technical challenges we need to solve in this program is reduce the time to connect to data sources. The scalability is important part, because if you have a relatively central solution, you have to ensure scalability. And one of the first questions from our beneficiaries, which are public agencies, is this central solution, will this central solution be able to perform and scale and to make many data, to have many data exchanges pass through it. Also, we already had some national registries to connect, and they use it historically and use still now various technologies, various databases, various licensing models, and operated in different contexts. So this is also an important fact, a problem to solve. And monitoring and complex journaling is another thing, because when you connect all of these government institutions, you have to ensure that this data, which becomes available and open to other government institutions, is not abused, first of all. And the second one is that every agency that consumes data already starts to depend on it as they change business processes, even their internal working structure. So if they connect as consumers, they have to rely on it and continue to work. It doesn't matter what happens in the other institutions that provide data to them. So basically, from legal till technical layers on all levels, what we try to solve is to connect as fast as possible to the data sources and to not depend on data source availability, willingness to provide data, or even the data structure they use or technology. So what we implemented is a data virtualization concept. So what this means is that you, as a public authority having some informational system, want to connect or need to connect to some data sources, you come to mConnect, you come to us and describe your needs, you prove that you have the right to read these data sources because you have the mandate to do some public work. And we provide you the interfaces for the data you need, and it shall not matter to you from where this data came, as soon as it is public, authoritative, maintained by other government institutions. Of course, this data is coming from another public institution or institutions. So we isolate the interfaces used for consuming data from the interfaces that provide data. So what this solves is that, first of all, the providers of data implement a relatively small number of web services or REST services, and they can provide all of the data to whatever context the other consumers need. And also, the consumers can ask us, and we have several scenarios already implemented for like that, to get data from multiple sources. For example, border police maybe wants to know when you pass the border if you have some problems with the law. Yeah? They can make a call, a single call, to the mConnect, and mConnect can distribute this query or call to several data sources and check various things. And provide an answer to the border, yes or no. There is a problem or not a problem with this citizen crossing the border. So these kind of things are possible through using mediation, which is also encrypting, transforming, slicing, dicing the data, combining them. And also another problem is that you have to know from where the data is actually to make the real connections. So these data consumption interfaces are based on the definitions in a so-called semantic catalog, which is actually a repository with schemas and data structures used and the classifiers used by data providers. Also, during this transformation and mediation, we log parts of these messages for that monitoring and auditing, further auditing of data exchanges between authorities. We are still working on mlog, which is another governmental centralized platform level service where you can throw your events and analyze them. So basically, it's a big data concept behind. So, based on this concept, which was developed before we chosen the solution, we organized an official tender, international tender by World Bank rules. We specified all of our requirements, and we had quite relatively many offers, including commercial one, open source one. Not only WSO2 was part of this as an open source solution. And WSO2 solution answered to all of our requirements. And one part of the score were also the prices. So the combination of the technical answer and the price of the solution combined is what is at the base of our decision who wins the tender. Our requirements are quite many, and because we have to cover many contexts and help our beneficiaries in many, not only what we see now, but many future needs. So this is why actually we use lots of WSO2 products. In the middle of this, of course, is the enterprise service bus, which is the main component which we use, we leverage fully. And the data services server is the component that helps us to open data locked in in some closed informational system that sometimes in the government context don't even have the sources or the original contractor to contact to develop some new web services for other organizations. So Data Services Server opens up for us that data for consumption to other organizations without changing the existing software or databases. Other components are important in their own layers. So we use Business Activity Monitor and Complex Event Processor for that monitoring and analyzing of data exchange flows. And we are now on this way to open up APIs to the general public, also through API Manager. We also have the Elastic Load Balancer, obviously for managing clusters, Identity Server for single sign-on in this environment and several others, and the Governance Registry for the semantic catalog. So, what are the piloting results? We are now in the piloting process till the end of this year. So, intermediate piloting results are, I would say, quite promising for us. We have got to, with our partners, to implement the automation of this whole deployment, because each environment, we have several environments, has almost around 30 nodes. And managing and upgrading, patching all of this using manual logins is quite difficult, so we chosen to automate everything using Ansible scripts. We have now 10 connected institutions, and we used multi-tenancy feature of the WSO2 stack quite heavily. We also found some problems in there, but they were solved by WSO2 production support and development support for us. We have around 15 integration projects already done, and we have a queue of almost, I don't know, 40 or 45 other integration projects waiting to clarify things, what data should be exchanged and to be connected. At this point in time, we have around 25 web services, and from January this year, where we declared the platform as ready to be used, till now, till May, we had real data messages exchanged in the number of 700K. So this may be a small number for other countries, but in the context of 3.5 million population, this number is quite high, and this is only the beginning of our journey. Our performance tests, which were part of this project to see how we can scale if this solves our problem, showed us that we have a lot of space in scalability. Using only 2 USB nodes, you see the numbers there. So 5,000 messages per second with simplest messages, and 200 messages per second CPU-heavy operation with encrypted and signed messages using the longest practical key nowadays. So this is pretty much enough and covers our original requirements fully. This piloting showed us several problems, and actually the piloting phase is not only for the technical side but also for the legal level and others. So we now know what legal framework adjustments shall be made. We are in the process of establishing a streamlined integration process, so that from the moment an agency wants to connect and consume some data till it can do it, this process shall be fully described and with concrete deadlines, so that authorities that have to give the permission to give data should answer to this streamlined process as soon as possible. We are in the process of populating the semantic catalog from initially using the definitions from the main registry, from, for example, National Registry of Population. And the next step from the technical side is that data sources have to connect in a generic way so that they don't build many services like they still continue to do, even though it's an inertia process, even though we say to them you can do it in a more generic way. Also, all of those products and other ideas cannot be used fully from the first day, so we are still adopting this solution in an incremental way. And making all of this as a government, we already have several requests from the private sector companies to consume or provide data to the government, and from the government, and even between them. So API Manager is what has to be used for that part. So basically, this roadmap shows to you that interoperability is not a simple problem. It's a program for us, and it will never end as a program for us and for any government, I think.